Basically, I was born in Jitrakhda, okay, a small town. And I went to a small town school, At that point in time, Sultan Ahmad Tajuddin in Jitra. And I was like moving in the studies, and masa tu tak kenal lagi science or whatever, So I was standard 1, and then my father had to shift to Penang. So when I was in standard 3, I had to shift to Penang. And suddenly, then my father registered me in the Residency Road Girls' School in Penang, which is a top primary school. But the school have decided that someone coming from the boondocks of Jitrakhda could not possibly be in standard 1A. So I was in standard 3A at that time. So I was pushed to the last class possible, standard 3I. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. So that was where perception about students coming from the rural areas, that first hit me, because I was placed in standard I. And I cried, and my father said to me, take it easy, show to them. And that was my first challenge to rise to challenge, okay? And it taught me early. And I said to myself, I said, I'm going to prove to them that coming from the boondocks of Jitrakhda does not mean that I could not do it. And that challenged me to study hard. And from then on, it was history. I was standard 1 in class 3I, I was first in the form of standard 3, in the whole standard 3, and the teachers took notice about how this girl from the boondocks suddenly now become first in the entire standard 3, then I become first standard 4, I become first standard 5, first standard 6, and immediately standard 4 they moved me to A class, and after that I was made a prefect and head prefect of the school of Residency Road Girls' School. That is rising to the challenge, okay, number 1. Then I went to St. George's Girls' School, and again, but this time, because I came from residency, they put me in A class. I was a prefect and all that, and I did very well in my Form 3 LCE at that time, and was given opportunity to go to the top boarding school, Tunku Kusiah College in Negeri Sembilan. And then I realized that when I first came in, I was in the top 10, and I didn't make it to number 1 all the time. And that shocked me into Kingdom Come, because for someone who's used to number 1, to get top 10, that means like number 9 or number 10, is blasphemy in my books. So again, I cried, okay, and again, the need to now see that when you pit against the best in Malaysia, are you a jago kampung, or are you the kind that have what it takes to make it to the next level, So I studied hard, but I learned from TKC to play hard as well, to enjoy life, to see life as a holistic, not just study, and that created the kind of person that I am. And then after that, TKC gave me the opportunity, to be interviewed and scholarship to go overseas. And being overseas is another rise to challenge, where now you are pitted against the best brains from Europe, from United States, from India, from the world, basically. In a US university, it's a global university, so you have people there together, and that is the continuous challenge that one has, to now be able to say Malaysians can do it, Malaysians can, and that introduced and intrigued me in science. It was in United States that that the challenge, especially at master's level at Indiana University in Bloomington, where the students, the graduate students, were challenged with questions, how you plan to solve these questions, and providing solutions to global problems. And that kept me going in science. First of all, I never planned my life to be in the science. I had always loved the arts. I wanted to be an interior decorator, for God's sake. Of course, that threw my father out of the wall. But you know, being good in science, he advised me, why not take medicine, but that was not in the game. Why not become a good scientist was also not in the game. I was intrigued enough to become a lawyer and an interior decorator. So you can imagine how parents at that time feel. But I decided to move in the science because the scholarship was in the science, and that kept me going. Again, rise to challenge is always there, even overseas. But when I did my PhD, this is where now I discover the passion for moving science to practicality. For me, I had always said that if I cannot explain to my grandmother what is it that I'm doing in the lab, and I cannot make her understand what is it that I'm doing in the lab, then I'm not good enough in doing the science that I wanted to do, my kind of science. That means I wanted to have whatever I spend time on should be able to be utilized. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that when I do research, it's got to be relevant. It's got to be something that people can use. And I also realized that the arena of science in Malaysia is such that your graduate students usually do not follow what you teach them, because when they get a job, they will be doing something else. And therefore, it has become a passion for me to make sure that what I have to do, from research, development, to commercialization, to setting up of company, to actually bring the research that I have done from the laboratory to industry to the people, require that I have to do it during my lifetime. You know, because of the situation in Malaysia, that you will not probably have followers. But along the way, this is again the rise to challenge. Along the way, if I can convince my graduate student to continue in this particular aspect of relevant science, you know, that to me would be something that I would like them to have. The question now is that when you're developing something for the people, then when I was in the university, which people? For the rich or for the poor? Okay, the world is 7.6 billion, is 2.6 billion is the rich, and 5 billion is the poor. And this is where now I suddenly realized that the science that I'm doing, do I want to go for the frontier cutting edge knowledge? Yes, I want to do that. I want to learn from the best cutting edge frontier knowledge. But what do I do with it? This is my next question. Either I continue to move on into this, at the end of the day, to be able now to publish in Asia Index and high impact factor, and actually now basically reflecting my own self-glory, or do I want now to learn from the best and turn around that technology that you learn into something that now my passion is to help the poor. Okay, so basically, why do I say this? Because I now realize there's no one to champion the poor. Many people don't care. Okay, but the poor continue to be in poverty, continue to have no one wanting to do anything for them. So then I say, perhaps in the current concept of blue ocean strategy, to boldly go where no one has gone before. That is where I start to build up my research team to now move in this arena. And as a result of that, we have got, in my area, I wanted to have, like I said, something that can be done during my lifetime. If it was a vaccine, it would take longer. If it was a drug, probably it would take longer to do, probably beyond my lifetime. So I move into diagnostics. Again, as I said, I'm a practical person. So I moved into diagnostics, and this is where now diagnostics for whom? Again, we say, why not we help the people who are dying? 48 million of cholera, 21 million of typhoid, that no one bothers to create diagnostics for them. So this has now become a mantra for us, because now we find that by moving diagnostics for the poor, we suddenly have 5 billion market volume of people who would probably benefit most, all right? And we find that by doing this, we actually challenge the capability of R&D to now do something that people have not done before. Because for low resource settings, usually people don't care. But, you know, like a simple thing like PCR, my area is medical biotechnology. For a simple thing like PCR, it has to be done with reagents. It has to be done in the cold chain. It cannot be done in a place where there is no electricity, because you need the PCR machine. So we say to ourselves, why not we sit down and we create something that no one has done before, which is no longer doing molecular diagnostics, which is the future diagnostics. It is high-tech, but change that to now diagnostics via molecular that no longer need reagents that need to be maintained in cold chain. Of course, my graduate student goes gaga again and said, this has not been done before. How can we do this? But this is the concept of rising to the challenge. If everything was easy, why bother to do it? Because it is a challenge. That is where now the mind comes in, the science comes in, to be challenged now, to now create something where no one has done before. And this is how now we come up with new technologies, where now we can do non-PCR based diagnostics that can now go to the field, can keep in your pocket, can go to the field, tear it apart, and you can perform the test. In 15 minutes, voila, it will give the results, all right? And suddenly, this now created a new innovation that can now go into the market in a big way, because now a lot of countries can afford it. But the thing is how to bring down the cost again. So when you start to do science and you now start to think about the going from Z to A, that means who is your target audience or the target client, and you move backwards, and now the fundamental in the science start to come in to be able to make the discoveries, the advances in the applied technology that you have, create now the latest technology platform that is state of the art, but at the same time can lower the cost of production. This is where now we generate innovations that can help people. So if you ask me, after all that, who is my hero? I would say that anyone who champion wanting to help the people of the poor, in this case Bill Gates, I would say that he's doing something to help scientists deliver, hopefully, for the poor. I think first of all, how many people is interested in science? Okay, this is something that we need to face facts. And why are they not interested in science in the first place? Maybe science was not presented to them in a very interesting manner, such that they lose touch and they lose interest with science when they were young already. But we find that when we have the young come into the university, like after Form 5, they're waiting for the results, and we have the Young Scientist program, and we make them come to university, we introduce the lab, we tell them what we do. Suddenly their interest is piqued, you know. So basically it's exposure to the science. And the other one is, I think, that can create an impression either to graduate students or to undergraduates or even to the young, is the icons. Who did they talk to? Who did they listen to? Who made them want to make that difference, you know? So that they will say, oh, I'm only interested in this, but suddenly now after hearing this one person talking, and you start to think about it, and then you say, maybe this is what I want to do for my life. So icons does matter in this thing. So, but to move the university, I think there is a need to have the political will in that university. It starts with the number one. If the number one is moving in the direction that will now move the university towards being relevant, then the whole university will shift towards that. Okay, and the idea again is to be able to change the mindset of the lecturers, the staff, the talent pool that is in the university now to move in that direction. And basically, if you use universal values like humanity, bringing from idea to creation of wealth for the country, but eventually to humanity to help those who need it most, is an idea that I do not think many people would challenge. Because at the end of the day, all Malaysians, we have inside us, at the end of the day, wanting to help. The question is how each one of us wants to contribute towards helping humanity. All right. So, and this is where we create people in the chain, in the value chain of, at the end of the day, knowing that this final product will reach humanity. So you have the manufacturers, we have the financiers, we have the lawyers to create the claims, we have all this. So we train the human capital to be innovative, creative in all these value chain that will bring eventually the product to the people. But the scientists who's working this is important because they are the drivers. They are the drivers. The drivers have got to know what and where to go, because if the drivers do not know this, then we have a problem. You know, so, and this is where I need to, I think, be able, most graduate students, they will be able to tell you, oh, I'm doing this. For what? For what? This is what we have to ask them all the time. You know, I'm doing R&D transfers, this is now going to do this. For what? So if only the students know at the end of the day, this is for what? Because even if you champion fundamental, at the end of the day, is for what? You know? So knowledge, when you have it, is meant for you to transfer it. It's meant for you to share it. And it's meant for you to make something out of the knowledge that you have. Okay? That will be the calling under Islamic law and principles, because knowledge is meant to be transferred, to be shared, and to be used in a proper manner to help the society. Let me tell you, when we first create the typhoid kit, first of all, the first challenge is that the CEO of the company is not R&D based. This is number one. In order to move a Malaysian R&D to the laboratory, to industry, who is the CEO? You know that we lack CEO talent pool. We lack that because we have CEO who are business minded, but we don't have CEO who are trained in the sciences, who have a PhD or master's in the science, who understand the science, but at the same time business savvy, who can now move this R&D product into the market. We are not talking about pisang goreng. You know, we are talking about an R&D product that has technology base that now needs to go to the market. So number one, the CEO, the entire business group have a long learning curve because they thought that they can sell these things like a trading. This is not trading. This is moving K-economy, right? Second challenge, the lawyers. When you create something that is innovative, creative, you need to file for patent. Otherwise, in the moving of the new economy, without having patent, venture caps do not come in to pump money. Alright, so you got to file for the patent. When you file for the patent, the education system is such that the lawyers come from the arts. They don't come from the science. Well, to file for patent, the most important is the claims. So how are you going to put in the claim for your client when you don't understand what DNA is, what RNA is, what the whole biotech scheme is? So it's difficult to put in the claims. And if the lawyers do not put the claims well, when we start to file the patent internationally, we'll be challenged before we can say, Jack Robinson, at the end of the day, you're only good for a Malaysian patent. This is not good enough. So that is why the scenario, if Malaysia is truly serious about moving commercialization of R&D from the universities, they've got to look into the fact that our lawyers need to also to be science savvy and at the same time becoming lawyers. Yeah. The third challenge is that the market, the consumer. Most of the time, we face the problem. What was developed by the Ministry of Higher Education usually don't easily got facilitated to another ministry, and as a result, the millions that is spent in terms of R&D on this part is not easily channeled to finally reach the people. So that was the challenge that I faced, and sure enough, when we start to sell the typhoid kit, Typhidot, they couldn't move very much into the Malaysian market. But when we start to go to Southeast Asia, Asians receive our kits no problem, because they all think very highly of Malaysia. So we went into Pakistan, to Philippines, to Indonesia, to Thailand, to all these other countries without having any problem. And the thing is, when this was selling very well in other countries, only then did it come into Malaysia. Isn't that sad? So I hope the scenario is such that if we are truly serious about moving R&D and commercialization, which we should seriously look into this ecosystem, the current innovation ecosystem that now exists in the country, to help facilitate. But then my fourth final challenge is the venture cap. The venture cap in Malaysia is not willing to take risks. They want a calculated risk. They want to be able, but we are dealing with Malaysian R&D that require deep pocket investment. We are not talking about something I pump in, okay, can I exit in 3 years? You can't do that, because we've got to build a reputation. Malaysia is truly known for Malaysia, truly Asia. It's meant for tourism. We are talking about R&D, commercialization of knowledge-based economy. So therefore, you got to build your reputation. People do not know Malaysia for the science yet, So to build a reputation requires branding, positioning, money, time, so that people get the buy-in to the Malaysian product. So I hope, for the sake of the Malaysia's future to move in K economy, some of the things that I mentioned just now would change. I think it is a high time that we have something like this, which is injection of soul into R&D or even R&I, because the researchers are doing one thing, the company CEOs are doing another. But when we now come together, perhaps we can come up with something new, something good, even towards the concept of social enterprise, in how we can still make a profit but at the same time be able to benefit the poor. And this is where now I think the calling is there. A lot of companies are already into CSR. They see this, but CSR should be seen as a continuous project rather than a one-off, that's it, you launch something and then we forget about it. But this kind of concept has got to have sustainability. Then and only then can the people continue to benefit. So we hope to be able to encourage a lot of people from around the world, a lot of companies who are already very successful to move social enterprise or to move their products to help the poor, but at the same time being able to generate income for the company and be able to survive. So let us now come to this global forum and share our experiences and best practices, and we hope to be able to learn. And there are so many ways of financing that is also now available to help the poor. There are crowd financing, wakaf, there are so many ways. So perhaps this is a high time, as I said, to have people from the CEOs from the companies as well as the researchers, top researchers in the country to now come together and share ideas and sit on a round table. But to make it move requires the political will, and this is where now we need the politician to be able also to come in, the political masters to also come in, to now sit down together. It should be a together thingy, in order to move this particular aspect of putting soul into R&D and creating products for those who need it most.